Young Turks, everybody. Ben, Michael Schur, David Pakman. We're trying this out with the three of us. Cenk is out. He'll be out until the middle of next week. This is going well so far as I'm concerned.
Well, except for David. Are we on?
Yeah. So during the break, the message was relayed to me from JR, who said that I should stop being so
nice to ass.
So nice to fucking jerks.
Well,
something
jerks,
along
yeah.
those lines. What was that in regard to, JR?
Oh, that Rick Santorum had a good debate, that he made a good point. I mean, it didn't make any sense. Everything he said. And I was thinking, and the second thing I didn't say.
The second answer,
I said, I think David wants to say that, but he's being too nice right now.
I was totally thinking that. I mean, let's be honest. But you're completely wrong that Rick Santorum has any chance. He's just not going to be the nominee. I don't know. I agree with JR on this. JR seems to agree with me.
Right. So now
Michael
if I disagree with you, I'm a racist. I got it.
Right.
I see how you Republicans
I'm
work.
Hispanic.
Yeah.
I'm Hispanic.
Right.
So just we don't even need JR in this whole thing.
No. Of course, nothing Rick Santorum said was good or anything other than horrible.
I don't. I know what Ben was saying.
Yeah.
I mean, Rick Santorum was asked a question. He was asked, "What would you do with this soldier, Stephen Hill?"
Yeah.
He answered that question, and I said, within the context of being a moron like Rick Santorum, a hateful ass like Rick Santorum, he answered the question well. I mean,
we found a moment where Rick Santorum said, "Well, I'd leave him in. I can't throw him out now." Like
Right.
we found the one moment of like, there's a bit of fairness and equity somewhere in the deep recesses of Rick Santorum.
And even JR, I mean, look, JR didn't even, he sent a page in with that comment. It's like he didn't even know what to do with it. So he wasn't passionate about it.
All right, so let's do Michelle Bachmann. There's interesting stories developing with Michelle Bachmann. Okay, all right. Very much.
Good opening.
Have we talked about that at all?
What?
Under any circumstances?
Doing Michelle Bachmann?
Yeah.
Under any circumstances?
Under any circumstances.
Yeah.
I don't know you well enough to ask.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. All right.
Unquestionably.
Yeah, I mean,
no question.
No question. And you would too, because you would love to come onto that David Pakman show the next morning and say, "You are not going to believe what I did last night."
Listen, she does look like she's a lot younger than she actually is. I said on my show the other day that in the echo chamber video where she literally looks like there's like a plastic tree in the background. Mm-hmm. She has no microphone. Everything's brown. Her skin and the back, everything's the same color. Her makeup looked good, I have to say. I thought maybe she was like 45 years old or something, and then I heard she's 55.
Yeah, she's 55. Let's.
It might be tough to get her to take the morning after pill, though.
She's having a lot of trouble raising money, Michelle Bachmann. She made a lot of money from small contributions after she won the Ames straw poll in August, bringing in, I think, millions of dollars, essentially averaging $48, sort of, which is a great thing. It's a great selling point. It's a great piece. It's a great point to make to the press about how you've got these little contributions. But ultimately, if you're going to run for president, you need the big money to roll in, and the big money is looking at her and saying, "This is not a serious." It's not a serious candidate.
Right.
Here's the thing, though. I know that now she's having some trouble. At some point, people did give her millions of dollars. Abstractly, I understand the idea of political donations, and there's some people that together will give her these millions of dollars. But if I think in my mind of what is one person who would see Michelle Bachmann and say, "I'm going to give her money to try to be the president," if I think about it in those concrete terms, who is that person? What does that person look like? How do they get through a day?
That person cheers when you hear about executions. That person cheers about somebody who's 30 years old and dying and doesn't have health insurance. And that person cheers the sort of the drumming out of a gay serviceman who's volunteered to risk his life to protect us.
Yeah.
That's who gives.
That's the Bachmann donor.
$2.2 million she raised, $48 at a time. Well, I think what was interesting was that she had such a great track record of raising money when she ran for Congress. She raised $13.5 million in a race in 2010
Against Elwyn Tinklenberg.
I was going to say, Michael will mention Elwyn Tinklenberg's name here.
Although that was in 2010. I think that was 2008. I don't think in 2010 L. Tinklenberg did not run.
Oh, that's a shame. But you know, you only made about $3 to $4 million off that. Like the direct mail costs so much money that get 13 point, like we never think about that, but to get the 13.5 million, she spent 10. Basically.
Right.
So it's hard to do. That's why you need the bundles. That's why you need the big checks. an evidence that she doesn't have any money was what David was referring to, is this latest campaign ad from her. We have a little snippet from it.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. Like, this is not a person running for president. This is a person on the Young Turks.
Right. Now, she almost, I was going to say, she almost looks like a Democrat in this.
It's compelling video, though.
Yeah, we have mics. Apparently, Michelle Bachman didn't have one. Let's hear Michelle Bachman's ad.
Hi, my name is Michelle Pakman. There are so many important issues in this current presidential campaign, including the role of government, the abuse of executive power.
She really doesn't look 55.
No, she looks good.
No, she looks good.
No, it's good. It's not even an issue.
You want to do some re-ask here?
I'm just saying. I'm just throwing it out there.
And Ed Rollins, who resigned as her campaign chairman now,
Right.
he apparently is still advising her, but he makes fun of her every single time he goes on TV.
Do you even
Is he
buy
still?
that?
Do you think that he's still
Yes,
advised?
that's what the New York Times
He
story said.
resigned because of health reasons, and my initial reaction was being her campaign chair would give you a heart attack potentially or cause health
Right.
issues.
Right. Oh, totally. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, he says that he said to attract big donors, she's got to be a serious candidate with serious solutions, and that's a challenge. He's working for her still.
Yeah. Well, I think in general it's a challenge for anyone, I think is what he's saying. I mean, look what happened. We all thought Thaddeus McCotter was going to walk away with this thing. Look what happened to him.
I don't know what that means.
Thaddeus McCotter was running for president. He's a congressman.
Oh, right.
Yeah. He dropped out of the race yesterday.
He did?
Yeah.
Well, it's because he wasn't at the debate.
Well,
How did Gary Johnson get into the debate?
There's a lot of controversy over Gary Johnson being allowed into that debate. A lot of, the Florida Republican Party did not want him in that debate. And I think they sort of look at him as the loose cannon, crazy liberal of that party. But in any case, yes, Thaddeus McCotter is a representative from Michigan, and he...
That's right. I remember when he declared.
Yeah. And yesterday, the dream came to an end.
Hell of a guy.
So Ed Rollins, real quick, there was that picture a couple days ago of Michelle Bachman in the meat locker, which people thought was unpresidential. I actually thought, apparently I defended Rick Santorum in the first one. I'm going to defend Michelle Bachman here. Well, what is she supposed to do? Like, it's a meat locker. You can't hang a flag in them. She doesn't look any less presidential than she does any other.
She looks more confused than
She looks more like a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah. But I mean, whatever. You're in a meat locker. I don't. But anyway, but then Ed Rollins, referring to a news photograph of her during a visit to the meat cutting business on Tuesday that some thought made her look unpresidential, Rollins said, "I'm not calling her up and saying you should not be in meat lockers." Which is apparently what you're saying.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
She just shouldn't be there looking the way she looked. Being in the meat locker would have been fine if she would have come up with something else to wear or some different expression, maybe.
Or if she was about to fight Apollo Creed.
Or if she weren't Michelle Bachman. Right. She was about to fight Apollo Creed. That was good stuff. Okay, so let's do... no, let's not.
Where do we go from here?
Rick Perry. So how did you think he did, David, yesterday?
I think Rick Perry did a great job of appealing to the average uninformed voter in the same way that George W. Bush appealed to the average uninformed voter.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah. It is completely scary to me that that's the appeal, because that actually, to me, says he could actually win, and he's nuts. He's completely nuts. I think maybe more so than George W. Bush.
Did you think he had a good debate politically? You thought he looked sort of as the same as he had in the other two?
There was something different. I don't know exactly. I'm sure we'll figure out exactly what it was. I just think that it almost, his swagger and his style appeals to the same people that like George W. Bush, also for reasons that should have no place in a presidential election.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I did think, technically, I think the first half of the debate for Rick Perry was much better than the second half of last night's debate. I think that he really squandered any kind of currency that he gained in the first half of the debate. And again, I don't know who's watching these debates.
Well, he didn't. The sense was that he didn't. Well, the sense among the Fox Insta poll certainly that he didn't win. The analysis from the Huffington Post was that he did better than the first two, but still didn't do great. But he was definitely better and more composed.
With different eyes than the people who actually are, sitting there saying, "Oh man, am I going to vote for Bachman? Am I going to vote for Perry?" We're not the people who really are even fit to judge, right?
But as I watch these debates, which goes back to what I said about Rick Santorum, when I watch these debates, like, I know how I'm going to feel about it, and I know how you guys are going to. I try to watch it like, does that connect with the guys who were cheering this stuff?
Right.
Just out of, but CBS in their analysis of it says he was caught flat-footed from the very beginning when asked about specific policies he would implement about the economy. Didn't seem to have a response and started speaking in generalities, which I think is fair. And again, so then he did try. Many people are framing it as the Romney-Perry debate again, that they just went after each other, ignoring everyone else. So this moment I thought was really outstanding. It actually reads just as well as it sounds, but let's hear it, because this is Rick Perry letting Mitt Romney have it with a zinger that I think Romney's going to feel for quite some time.
I think Americans just don't know sometimes which Mitt Romney they're dealing with. Is it the Mitt Romney that was on the side of against the Second Amendment before he was for the Second Amendment? Was before he was before these social programs from the standpoint of he was for standing up for Roe versus Wade before he was against Roe versus Wade? He was for race to the top. He's for Obamacare, and now he's against it.
Ouch!
We'll wait until tomorrow and see which Mitt Romney we're really talking to tonight.
You know what's hilarious?
I mean, just like, do you really want to go to that State of the Union?
Romney starts actually writing down rebuttals, and then halfway through, when Rick Perry goes completely off the rails, you can see him visibly cross out the rebuttals. He doesn't need to do anything.
He's like, I'm good. I'm going to let this one stand.
I'll let him have this one, exactly.
Yeah, Your Honor, And the defense? We have nothing further. We're good. It's just because Lucas went to the trouble. Let's just read through it real quick, because it's fun to read too. I didn't know we'd actually have it. Is it the Mitt Romney that was on the side of against the Second Amendment before he was for the Second Amendment? Was before? He was before the social programs from the standpoint of he was standing up for Roe versus Wade before he was against first Roe versus Wade? I mean, we'll wait until tomorrow to see which Mitt Romney we're really talking to tonight. And that, by the way, left out the whole good race to the top finish.
Right, oh yeah, he was for the race to the top. There was no other side. There was no, before he was against, it was just for the race to the top.
But you know how sick the situation is? People now the Republicans, Republican base, Republican primary voters will hear people like us talking about it, and then it'll have the Sarah Palin effect with the Paul Revere thing. Oh, they're just going after her, they're putting her words up on the screen, and they're making her look bad, and it's all a setup.
No.
I'm going to support him even more because he's the victim of a liberal attack.
When he speaks clearly, just understand this, when he speaks clearly, and we can understand everything he says, we are just as merciless about what he's saying. So it has nothing to do with that at all.
But the Republicans don't feel as bad for him when something like this happens. They have more sympathy.
Well, it's the George Bush effect again.
That's exactly right.
And then how about the effect on the difference between when we watch the debate and the Republicans who are going to vote in these primaries watch the debate, our reaction to the things that Rick Perry, that they criticize Perry for? Because then as soon as he starts talking about giving the same in-state tuition to anybody who's been in the state for whatever it is, however long it requires you to get in-state tuition, I mean, a rational person says, oh, good, that's a good policy. Yeah, good. Of course you should. Everybody said in-state tuition. And then, no, we can't build a fence. And you're like, yeah, no, that's a good point. And then that's where he's hammered. That's where he's taking the blows.
Yeah.
It's a different planet, a different world.
If you guys had to seriously support one of the Republican candidates, not like you would vote for them because of how it would affect the Democratic primary.
No, that's how I watch these debates.
Well, but who would you support?
Right now, Newt Gingrich. I mean,
really?
If I were, like, I'm saying that, not that, I'm again,
right,
for clarity here, I'm not advocating
You're still you.
I'm still right.
But you're still you, but they decide we decide that the president is just coming from these 8 people.
From these 8 people. Well, I mean, I don't know that I'm still me. If I'm still me, I'm not. I would say probably Huntsman. I mean,
that's my pick. I would vote for Huntsman.
But Huntsman seemed really odd.
He's a very odd guy.
He's an odd guy. But I'm saying if I were not me, and if I were a conservative Republican, and I was not a crazy religious freak, but I was I guess never mind. There's no really way around that. But if I were a conservative Republican and I wanted a capable president, I think that I would be supporting Newt Gingrich after these debates.
I'm with the.
That's fine. I'm
with John Huntsman.
You know where I agree about Gingrich though? The question we asked was if instead of a 30-second here, 30-second there debate, there was like a real debate where they sat down for hours and they actually had to come up with some kind of solutions or whatever. Sure. I actually think Newt Gingrich is the guy who can go into the most depth. I'm not saying I would agree with him, but I would pick him as the one that could go into the most detail and actually understand the issues. I think totally Ron Paul, which a lot of people think, would be able to go very, very, very far and deep into issues, actually is just really good at saying something that sounds different. But he would run out. He would hit bottom
mile wide, inch thick. That's how he is.
Yeah, because it's all like, I don't know, I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't fund it. Wouldn't give him any money.
He can always fall back on that. He can always go, no, I just wouldn't do it.
The government shouldn't do anything.
Right, let some business handle it. If there's a market for it, a business will do it.
Tons of the confusion. I had this guy, Robin Kerner, on my show who started this blue Republican movement. He says progressives and independents who lean somewhat left should actually switch to the Republican Party and support Ron Paul. And it's just, there's so much confusion between liberal and libertarian, and so many liberals are incorrectly thinking, what Ron Paul says sounds kind of liberal, and if you really look, it's not. And I'm worried that a lot of them will be influenced into voting for Ron Paul.
I don't think so. I don't think there's a concern about that. But I think that
fad
confusion
now,
exists. I don't think there's any tangible effect of that confusion. But
Hopefully
certainly,
not.
yeah, and of course, look on a very cursory level. Like sometimes Ron Paul says stuff that's just fun.
Well, it's
and
like,
interesting.
even a good point is with gay marriage. You hear Ron Paul and he says, I don't think there should be any federal amendments to ban gay marriage and states should decide. And a liberal might hear that just very superficially and say, oh, he doesn't want a federal amendment. That sounds kind of liberal, but it's still opening up the door to tons of states that are incredibly anti-gay to pass their own laws. It's not really liberal.
Right. Yeah, and even if Ron Paul himself doesn't care, and I sense that he doesn't care, at some point, though, whether there are gay marriages or not, there are going to be children in whatever state that is that need to go to school, and he doesn't really want to fund them or the roads that the bus needs to get there.
The deeper you get with Ron Paul, and the deeper you get pretty much with libertarian philosophy, that's what happens. But Ron Paul, I don't think there's a depth of knowledge about these subjects. I think that he does have that crutch that he can go back on all the time, which is that libertarian. Well, I mean, just don't do it, So,
where was the McCain thing that JR found?
Where was he? He was
it was in 2008, right?
In Western Pennsylvania.
Right,
yeah.
So JR was awesome because we had so much fun there with that Perry botched clip. JR went back and found a classic, TYT classic from John McCain in 2008. What the controversy was, what? Voters in Western Pennsylvania after the Democratic primary, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, he was talking to voters in Western Pennsylvania who were considered not patriotic for some reason.
Wasn't there the argument from the Clinton people that Obama suggested that those voters in Western Pennsylvania, those Democratic voters in Western, conservative Democrats, were racist because of the manner in which that campaign was getting run, that campaign in Western Pennsylvania, even on the Democratic side, took on a slightly...
I don't specifically remember that, but it makes sense. I know it had to do with, with John Murtha and all of that, but I don't...
It was real Americans. It was like these are real Democrats, these white sort of hard-working Democrats, these are what matter, not the black guys in Philadelphia. That was the nature of that debate. So anyway, then McCain referred back to that in 2008 in this classic.
I think you may have noticed that Senator Obama's supporters have been saying some pretty nasty things about Western Pennsylvania lately. And I couldn't agree with them more. I couldn't disagree with you. I couldn't agree with you more than the fact that Western Pennsylvania is the most patriotic, most God-loving, most patriotic part of America. And this is a great...
He got rescued, actually, by the cheering, right? Because they would have had to go on for a few more seconds.
They did stop it.
The poor Cindy at that moment.
Yeah, she was giving this, though. She was giving the campaign spouse this, the spouse of the candidate was doing that, and then...
We can't be surprised, though. McCain is the guy who said he would veto every beer once. Whatever that... I still don't understand what that means.
One thing that I noticed on his podium, which, remember, we were saying it constantly back in 2008, country first.
Oh, yeah. Right.
That was the worst slogan ever. I mean, I don't even remember it until I saw it just now.
Lean forward is the worst slogan ever.
I don't think lean forward's the worst. I like lean forward.
You like lean forward?
I think it's great, actually. I was having a conversation.
No one in the country knows what it is except the four of us.
No, no, because nobody knows. All right, we'll stop there.
So let's talk about John Huntsman for a brief moment because we did mention his awkwardness.
And I do, when we get to campaign, you being a Massachusettan, I want to talk to you a little bit about Elizabeth Warren before we let go.
Sounds good.
Let's go to clip 5 here first, JR, because John Huntsman at the last debate, I believe, is not one reason why maybe David and I like him so much, and I know you, if forced to choose, being you might still vote for Huntsman too.
No, I wouldn't. I would vote for Huntsman as me.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's what the question was.
Huntsman as me. Yeah, he's pro-science, whatever that means. Apparently on the GOP, science is a political issue. You can be for or against it the same way you can be for or against
he actually
smoking
says
in public.
The party is drifting too far right. Those words came out of his mouth.
I would vote for, I want to be clear, I would vote for John Huntsman if I were me. I thought David was asking me if I weren't me.
No, if we were us, but we were voting
all of a
for
sudden,
Republicans
you had
in
to
a
have
real
one of these
way.
guys.
Huntsman, hands down.
But I don't think I think he has less of a chance than Rick Santorum. This is a great debate.
Yeah, he does.
Right, okay, so less than zero in your world.
He has a minus 0.1 chance of winning.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, everybody who might vote for John Huntsman is going to vote for Mitt Romney. I mean, is sort of how I feel about it.
I don't think John Huntsman has it in him to do this. Like, you have an interesting point about him running in 2016, laying the groundwork there, but he doesn't seem comfortable enough doing the things that these guys have to do. And I think I've just given him a compliment.
Yeah, I agree that's a good thing.
Whenever he tries to lay one in there, and hit somebody else or get back into, he can't do it. He doesn't. He's not fat. It's not that he's awkward on stage. He's awkward at this.
He also had a very bad night last night. I think he was worse last night than he's been at all.
I thought he's been bad.
If you believe in evolution, you're going to have a bad night at the Republican debate, right?
I mean, I just meant performance value. But you're right.
Let's go back to clip 5 here. This is the previous debate where Huntsman goes after Perry on Perry's work at the border.
Well, first of all, let me say, for Rick to say that you can't secure the border, I think is pretty much a treasonous comment. Rick, we can secure the border. We can secure the border through means of fences, through technology, through the deployment of our National Guard troops.
As soon as he said it, he was sorry that he said it.
And he smirks, and then Rick Perry starts laughing.
Because he's like, it's not treason. I know it's not treason. It's ridiculous. We're just disagreeing about it.
It felt like saying you were treasonous, and this is the only shot I had.
So then last night, he was asked, as they all were, about who they would pick on the stage as a vice presidential candidate, and he had another awkward moment.
That was really awkward.
But I would have to say, since Chris Wallace doesn't qualify as somebody on the stage, so I can't pick one of you, that Herman Cain, because of his selection of ties, the fact that we both apparently agree with the gold standard, wearing the yellow ties here tonight. And because of the good neighbor policy, 999 mixed with my tax policy would be the most competitive thing this nation could ever achieve. I'd have to say Herman's my man.
Candidates, thank you very much.
Okay, now what happens if Herman Cain doesn't shake his hand there?
That's better.
That would have been
great.
So
what a great moment that would have been.
So great.
Oh, I would have loved that. Yeah, he just doesn't. It's not. It doesn't come naturally.
I'm tempted to say,
John Hunt, this kind of nonsense. Although, if you were casting a movie, and you needed someone to play the president in your film,
get Rick Perry.
No, John Huntsman. That guy looks like.
Maybe we should. Maybe it's not a bad thing for a politician to be awkward socially, though, right? I mean, maybe we care too much about that. I don't know.
That would be great. No, that's why it was a compliment that he doesn't seem comfortable at this kind of thing. But I mean, that's not going to affect him.
You're in the movie end of the world. You think that John Huntsman would be the best? He would win the audition.
Put that clip up real quick. We don't need to play it. Just like let me see a still of that clip where he's talking there.
Well, it's not going to be Herman Cain because we never have a black president.
That guy, look at the hair and the way the suit hangs. That guy looks like what we think the president should look like.
I don't think he does look like. I think he looks too meek for casting.
I think he goes a little bit beyond. Like, for example, the tan's a little bit too dark.
I agree on the tan.
I don't think he's.
I think he looks like the.
Well, Mitt Romney too. You know.
No, Mitt does too, but
that's gotten downright bizarre. I don't understand. He's going. It seems as weird as Boehner almost in a different way.
Totally. It's very,
strange.
Very strange.
Let's take a break. Come back, and we haven't talked about
the world. But I do want to talk about Elizabeth Warren with our Massachusetts.
We'll talk about Elizabeth Warren, and we'll mention the World and that poll, also that media poll about how much people hate the press. Turks, everybody. Ben, Anna, David Pakman here. I don't think that they should let inmates who are on death row who need glasses. They shouldn't be able to wear their glasses.
Well, we got to teach them a lesson, right?
Got to teach them a lesson.
We got to make them suffer as much as possible, especially death row inmates.
Yeah, make us feel better.
Yeah.
Extra kill them. Okay, what else?
The Office of National Statistics in the UK finds that civil partnerships are less likely to end in a divorce compared to straight marriage, okay? So what they did is they looked at the civil partnerships that have been legalized in the UK since 2005. They found that about 42,778 gay couples got married or entered a civil union.
We got it.
And only 2.5% of those civil unions dissolved, okay, in the end. But when it comes to straight marriages, about 5.5% ended.
But like, what I don't understand is this, like, where's that 50% number, or is it way less?
This is only during the first 4 years.
Okay, so that there.
Plus,
Yeah,
also, I bet the divorce rate is probably lower in England and Wales than in the U.S., right?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
So 2.5%, so more than twice as many end in broken marriages.
Yes.
Although I wonder what the procedures are, if they're exactly the same for getting out of a civil union, or if now, or if like if you're in a civil union, if you just be like, yeah, all right, we're done. We're done. Yeah.
So this correlation exists in the U.S. too. If you look at divorce rates by state, and then you also look at which states have gay marriage or same-sex unions or whatever, you actually see this inverse correlation also, where the states with the highest divorce rates are states where gay marriage is actually looked upon most negatively, usually isn't legal. So I bet if a similar study was done in the U.S., there would be similar numbers.
Right.
It's interesting. What conclusion would you draw from that? Is I think an interesting question, because I don't think because gay people are going to have exactly the same problems that everyone else has. Precisely.
They are.
So in a sense, I would think the statistics are going to even out. They're going to get, but if you're gay and getting married, especially in the infancy of all this, you have to really, really, really want to, which means maybe you're thinking about it more, which means maybe it does last.
This makes me think about the naysayers, the people who are against same-sex marriage, right? And the reason why they're against same-sex marriage is because they believe in the sanctity of marriage. They believe that it is something that should be between a man and a woman. And it's just interesting to hear straight individuals say that when you look at gay unions and you notice that they're less likely to divorce, okay? So, and then you look at straight couples and they divorce all the time with absolutely no problems. A lot of the divorces end up becoming very ugly, right? And where's the sanctity of marriage when it comes to that? So that's what I immediately think of when I look at these findings, because divorce rates are less when it comes to gay couples or gay unions.
Well, sanctity of marriage, I mean, the Menendez brothers, they can get married from jail, but gay couples,
Yeah.
Sanctity.
The marrying prisoners. What is with you women?
I don't know. I actually know someone who is dating a prisoner. She met him while he was in prison.
How long is he away for?
How does that happen?
I don't. I don't exactly know how it happened. She has a friend who got put away, and they were like cellmates, and then the guy, they're cellies, yeah. And
they have too many rights. They have Facebook in prison. They met through Facebook.
I do away with that.
So they get to write to pen pals or something, right? And her friend, who is cellmates with her now boyfriend, said, "Hey, I have a friend named..."
If you're not going to use the word celly, I'm not going to let you continue the story.
So he has a cellie, okay,
Nice.
and she's like, okay, sure, I'll write to him. And they started writing, and she fell in love with him through letters. And then she went and visited him, and they got to know each other. I think and by the way, I wouldn't call her my friend. She's more of an acquaintance.
You're going to backtrack on that a little. But
that's
probably a good idea.
You shouldn't date someone who's in prison, especially if you didn't know him prior to getting locked up.
Do you know the lesson that I'm learning from this? Any guy who writes any girl a letter can do anything he wants with her.
I was just going to say, people always talk about how the lost art of writing an actual letter.
That's
Maybe
true.
when you're in prison, you have all this time. Imagine if these prisoners are writing incredible letters like the Civil War soldiers would send via horseback to their wives. Dearest Anna, it's another incredible day of sunlight here that I can see through my window, and it pales in comparison to, what...
the way the light comes through the bars.
They have so much time that they're incredible writers. Maybe that's what's going on here.
No, let me tell you something. I think the most underrated thing a guy can possibly do is give a woman a card. And I know you guys don't buy it, but it's true. Nothing turns me on more than getting a loving card from my boyfriend.
No, I don't just not buy it. I totally buy it.
Yeah, it's so sexy.
Every one of these things are these women, some of them fairly hot, who fall for these guys in prison all because they wrote something down. If any of us would just get some stationery. And you want to get laid. If there's some girl you want to nail, just write her a freaking letter, and apparently you're done. You can be in prison, and she'll have a conjugal visit to come see you. If you're not in prison, all you got to do is take her to Moneyball. Done.
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 I'm not even going to argue with that. There's an element of truth to that. All right. 1 in 10 Italian couples now practices extreme sex, which includes BDSM. And it turns out that 1,000 men worldwide die every year as a result of this extreme sex. So the Daily Beast wrote this really fascinating
Do you, without
article.
looking at it, know what BDSM stands for?
Bondage. I looked this up. Bondage. Domination.
No.
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 Discipline.
Oh, bondage, discipline, domination, and discipline, kind of similar,
Similar.
right?
All right, we're not counting it.
Submission.
You glanced. You're such a cheater. All right.
And masochism.
Right,
so,
okay.
all right. So now, as I said, Daily Beast wrote a really fascinating article about this because people are dying as a result of this extreme sex. So, what should the consequences be for the person who survives the extreme sex, right? So, for instance, there's a couple. The man has the woman tied up, or he chokes the woman as she's orgasming, and she dies as a result of that. Now, should he be charged with involuntary manslaughter if that type of sex was consensual between them? I think it's an interesting question.
I would say no.
I would actually go with no as well. And then what do? Do you outlaw this kind of sex? That's impossible.
Well, then that's not going to get you anywhere outlawing.
Right.
I would say yes. I would say yes.
But if it's consensual,
Don't kill someone.
but you're not
Hold
intentionally
on a
killing
second.
someone.
If someone says, I want you to kill me, it's still illegal to kill the person, right?
Yeah.
So just because it's consensual alone can't be the deciding factor.
That's
There has
why-
to be something else. Is what is actually being done a crime? And I guess tying someone up with ropes, if you are not killing them, is definitely not a crime.
If you want to engage in BDSM or what is called shibari,
Shibari is a type of BDSM.
that's an ancient Japanese erotic art where one of these stories happened and the woman got suffocated, right,
Yes.
during shibari.
Asphyxiated.
Asphyxiated, right. So then if you're going to engage in it, it's legal. These are all consenting adults. You just have to be super careful. And if you're not super careful, when somebody dies, you might get charged with manslaughter. That's it. So be careful.
I don't really get the whole fetish thing, like people have to build a bookcase before they can have sex. What? I don't understand.
That's not a fetish I'm familiar with.
But you know what I mean. It's just
What is that?
people have these weird things they have to do before, after, during. I don't know.
That's like my mom would make me build a bookcase before I could watch TV, but that's not. Believe me, that was not sexual. I don't really. Let's go back. Let's focus on the building a bookcase. What fetish is that?
No, it may not be a specific one that I've ever heard of.
right.
But
You just made it up.
Yeah, or you have to cook a pie and then. I have no idea.
I haven't heard of that one either.
Sort of delaying sexual gratification.
Right,
sort of
with
that's-
weird kind of activity. Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's this whole sex craze known as, and it's a fetish called eaters, right? Where you feed one another while you're having sex. I don't think that's a bad. I think that's one of the best fetishes out there.
To feed each other while having sex?
Yeah. I mean, I don't participate in it, but I wouldn't be opposed to it.
I don't think that other things should be involved in sex. Right.
You're the worst. Why? I mean, as long as it's in good fun and it's consensual, I don't think it's wrong. I mean, BDSM, I don't understand that at all. It's not my thing. I don't want to be tied up. I don't want to be choked. I don't want to be spanked. None of that stuff.
Sure. You don't want to be spanked?
You know what I mean?
No, I don't. I mean, I only know what you mean if that's what you mean.
I took it too far. I shouldn't have said that. But you get what I mean. I don't want to be physically harmed in the process of engaging in intercourse.
Yeah, I don't want to hurt
Is it
somebody.
weird to bring up that list of stuff unprovoked? Because neither one of us said anything.
Right,
We
yeah.
just started listing thing
Right,
after
I don't want to be
thing.
here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to
If
touch
you
a
want
guy.
to feed me a piece of pie, though, I'm into that.
But literally, I don't I get that food might be involved a little bit, but eating a meal in the middle of sex. I
Like a sub line.
Yeah.
What about the gamers?
Like a
the
stew.
online gaming people, they need to, Warcraft or whatever, you need to, my producer's into that. It's he and his girlfriend need to, complete a raid with, their level 43 whatever before, I don't know.
Oh, you totally threw your producer under the bus. Poor
Yeah,
guy.
of course.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Oh, it's horrible.
Well, Andy, you got to think of the logistics
Right.
of the eating part. I mean,
Right.
I thought it was just because they want, they want to fatten up their partner or whatever. I thought that was what we were talking about
That's
before.
part of it. That's
but
part
if
of
it's
it.
strictly just eating, think about it. Now later, I don't know what they're eating. Say it's pie. You got something in your teeth. You got some crumbs on your mouth. Now you have some residue. When you eat something, if it's sticky like a dessert, now you got this stickiness in people's tongues. It's just, It's not.
just-
It's probably
being
not
so
going to be.
specific
I'm
about
not
exactly
concerned.
It's
how it would
probably not
happen.
going to be
Hold on.
very enjoyable, is what I'm saying. Now you got food that you got to transfer. Nobody wants somebody's food that's in their mouth.
I know.
your mouth.
JR is our resident food hater, so take what he says with a grain of salt. I'm not concerned about having Okay. I'm
If you
not
combine
concerned-
this with a toothbrushing fetish
Right.
and flossing, you're fine.
You're fine. No, but what I am kind of concerned about is it could be a little distracting, right? Because like you're chewing and you're like, hold on, let me get that last bite.
Here's
It's
the
like,
thing,
oh, you
there's
want it that way.
There's a Seinfeld where George Costanza is involved in something like this, and he gets more into the food. That's the risk, right? What if all of a sudden the pastrami sandwich is more attractive
right.
than the guy, and
Which is almost always the case.
or the opposite? I don't know. Whatever. That would be the risk, isn't it? I would be self-conscious about that.
I'm fascinated by people's fetishes in general because if it's not your fetish, then you almost never understand it.
Right, of course.
Right.
But of course, if you have some sort of a fetish or a sexual desire, which brings you great shame, then you understand the concept of somebody being really into feet or pie.
The thing is, when does it become a mental illness? And I'll bring up an example I know you know about, Jeff the Vomit Guy on the Howard Stern show,
yes,
right?
right, yeah.
I don't know about Jeff the Vomit Guy.
He's into people vomiting on him, and it's
During intercourse?
Yeah,
I think instead of, actually.
I think it's sort of instead of.
yeah.
What he wants is a girl to throw up on him.
That's
So the
pretty
question
disgusting.
is any fetish just a preference, or at some point are we dealing with
don't we
a
get-
psychiatric type of situation?
Then you sound like I'm going to start sounding like a Republican. Like at some point, I guess we get to have some sort of judgment, don't we?
That's my
like
thing,
that.
too, I
Or
know.
do we not? Or we just be like, no, man. If you find a girl who wants to throw up all over your face while you pleasure yourself, more power to you. Or I think it's reasonable to go, that's freaking gross.
Yeah, that's totally reasonable. But at the same time, I do agree. Like, if that doesn't hurt anyone and it's consensual, then do what you want to do.
But that guy,
I'm going to think it's gross.
Jeff the Vomit Guy, like when you meet him, is apparently a totally normal, cool guy. No, he's disgusting. He wants you to throw up on him. But it's funny. Every time he's on, it's funny.
Crack.com recently released an article titled The 6 Most Horrifying Lies the Food Industry is Feeding You. And I wanted to talk about it a little bit. Maui Rising, one of our regular viewers, sent this article to me, and I thought it was scary, fascinating at the same time. And I want to list a few of the things. It turns out that food companies substitute ingredients such as flour and oil with something known as cellulose, right? Now, cellulose is something that I hadn't heard of before, so I wanted to do some research on it. According to Crack.com, the reason why the food industry uses cellulose is because it's cheap. It's made from wood pulp or cotton. Okay, and as I said, it's a cheap way to substitute expensive foods like wheat, flour, oil.
I love wood.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, it's not that harmful to your body, right? Crack.com is saying, like, your body can't digest it, so it's really bad for you. But it actually turns out that it helps your digestive tract. Right, and it has no nutritional value, which some people would be upset by.
Overrated.
But if it doesn't have nutritional value and your food doesn't, or your body doesn't absorb it, that means it doesn't have calories.
Seems like it'd be
Who
high in
cares?
fiber, though. I feel like tree bark would be high in fiber.
It is. And that's why it helps with your digestive tract. So cellulose, I'm not buying Crack's argument on it. But it is in the food, and you will see it in the ingredients, and it's literally in everything. Okay?
The reasoning behind it is similar to corn. Corn is in everything now. People are getting paid to produce corn. Corn is subsidized. People, at one point, were getting paid not to produce corn. There's just corn in everything, and it's a money thing completely.
It is a money thing. Of course, the food industry isn't doing this because they think it's good for us.
No.
They're doing it because they want to maximize their profits. All right, they also talk about orange juice, and orange juice turns out to be like a year old in some cases, right? If oranges are not in season, what happens is all of these companies that make orange juice hold squeezed orange juice in these massive tanks, and in order to preserve it, they suck out all the oxygen from these tanks, right?
Flavor packets.
Right. So what happens is a year later, when they're ready to sell this orange juice, it tastes like nothing. It tastes like nasty, mushy water.
Well, I'm going to jump in here.
Yes.
This is like some of these. The one you're going to get to is disgusting. This is good.
This is not good. No, it's not.
This is science doing something good. This is what it does. This allows you to mass produce oranges,
not
keep it
good.
around, and make money. Who cares? Then don't buy it if
No,
it tastes like
Forget
nothing.
about the science thing for a second. There was an interesting article on Alternet about breakfast a couple of weeks ago.
Don't
I
hit
don't know
me
if you
with
saw it.
information.
Hold on a second. The whole orange juice is healthy for you thing is a corporate scam,
Yes,
right? I mean, orange
yes.
juice, if you have oranges and you squeeze them and you drink it. Okay.
It's good
But this
for you, yes.
idea that start the day off with a tall glass of flowing orange juice, it's cascading down, and vitamin C. If you're drinking orange juice for vitamin C, that's not smart. You can get vitamin C.
No,
other
you're
ways
getting
that make more
massive
sense.
amounts of sugar, and I'm sure it's
filled
processed.
with sugar.
Yeah.
They got these flavor packets, which don't even have to go on the ingredient list.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
The flavor packets are the real problem here because, of course, after a year, you have like this weird, mushy substance that tastes like nothing. So you need the flavor packets to make it taste like orange juice, right? The problem is the flavor packets have chemicals and ingredients in them that do not have to be listed on the, the nutritional information area of the carton. So you have no idea what's in it. And it's not good for you. So it's definitely bad. You can't say that orange juice is all natural when you're using all
I'm
these
not saying
chemicals.
it's all natural. I'm saying that a process that allows them to keep the oranges fresh for a year by removing the oxygen, good. Good. That's what we do in corporate America. That's how we make money. That's good. That keeps their profit margins high and they employ people. I don't care about that. Like if you tell me they're putting something horrible in, like ammonia in beef, I'm going to have a slightly larger problem. And we'll get to that. And I don't know what's in the flavor packets, but the argument that they're made by the same company that produces cologne. Like,
Okay, but
so they're not putting
if you wanted
cologne
to
in.
look into this, if your thing is what's being sprayed, if you want to look into growing oranges further, I guarantee you some of the stuff that's sprayed on the oranges, maybe not ammonia, but I'm sure you can find stuff in there.
No
you would
doubt,
like.
no doubt. I'm just, the idea that stuff gets stored and we found a way to store it safely for a year, good for America, even though we probably didn't.
Hey, we found a way to store water in bottles for years. Oh, wait a second, it starts leaching plastic in there and that causes cancer. Hey, we found a way to store it, right?
It also causes like 8-year-old girls to go through puberty.
Yeah, and it feminizes boys. There's a whole,
It
genital
also,
situation.
it definitely feminizes boys, no question.
All right,
What
let's
else?
talk about what Ben was referring to, ammonia-infused hamburger meat. It turns out that ammonia is a great way to kill E. coli.
Mm-hmm.
So what the meatpacking industry does is they use like ammonia gas to kill E. coli in our beef.
This is in Food Inc.
Yes.
And it's disturbing. There's just no way around it. And then when you find the places that don't do this, whose meat is not infused with ammonia, that's where you want to get your fast food burger from. But
It's a low bar to set.
It is, and
ammonia is as long as there's no ammonia, I'm happy.
I
with
have
the
a
quality.
very strict low ammonia policy on my cheeseburgers. The problem is, of course, I've completely forgotten which ones that was. So now I'm like, well, screw it, I'll just go to McDonald's, which has to have massive amounts of ammonia.
Well, it's
totally.
the ammonia beef filler burgers with cheese-like product.
Yeah.
The cheese has cellulose in it, by the way.
Do you go to McDonald's?
It's wood cheese. Let me tell you a story about McDonald's. I'm going to be completely serious here. People don't believe me when I say this. The last time I went to McDonald's, I was 15 years old.
Really?
No way.
I have not been to McDonald's for anything.
help people out.
You're very svelte, so I do believe it.
But you could be 19 now. So how old are you now?
No, it was 2 years ago when I was 15. Yeah, I haven't been for 2 full years. No, I'm 27. I haven't been to McDonald's for 12 years since I've gotten my license. I've never been through a McDonald's drive-thru in my car.
Really? I have not been to McDonald's since 12 today.
Seriously.
It was, by the way, it was delicious.
Inside baseball on Ben, I would say 9 out of 10 times when he comes in here, he has one of those massive sweet teas.
No, that's not true, but they're so good.
They are.
It's so delicious.
All right, let's go to the next one. So fake berries. A lot of the food that we will say that it has berries in it, but in reality it has like corn sugar or cornstarch or corn syrup that is colored and created in such a consistency that looks like blueberries, but it's really not. And then if you look on the ingredients label, it says things like blueberry crunchlets or blueberry flakes.
Crunchlets.
So, so people get deceived into thinking that they're actually blueberries, but in reality they're not.
It's a blueberry-like product.
It's a blueberry-like product, but it won't say that on the label. It'll
Blueberries are very healthy, real blueberries.
Of
not
course they are.
blueberry
High in
crunchlets.
antioxidants. Yes, very good for you. And let's go to free-range chickens. It turns out that if you get free-range chicken eggs, they might not be free-range at all, and the FDA does not regulate that. It turns out that free range only applies to the meat that is being sold. So if a company is selling free range chicken meat, then they can specify whether or not it's free range. But if they're selling eggs, they can lie and say that it's free range, and the FDA won't do anything about it.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Do you think I'm being bamboozled? You know how Whole Foods now has this whole like 1 through 5 rating on meat? And I don't know if you know, maybe you don't know. But they do. They have this 1 through 5 rating, and like 1 is the best and 5 would be bad. It's like, worse conditions.
Whole Foods bad.
It's Whole Foods bad, right? Which maybe isn't that bad. And I actually look at that, and sometimes I'll be like, oh, the 1 costs a little bit more, but it looks like it's better. So I buy the 1. I'm like, give me the chicken thighs, the number 1. Do you think that's for real, or am I getting just bamboozled with that too?
Our skepticism about everything that anyone involved in anything corporate does is so high. Like,
it should be. It should be.
Because it's genius. Because the 1 through 5 scale.
It's like put a scale up there and then number the meat, and then people will pay more because it's got a lower number on there. It's brilliant. Maybe it's not real.
Or it's real, and they've done it, and there's a slide that they can charge more, and that makes a great deal of sense. Why wouldn't it be real?
Oh, because it's a way to make money.
Of course, yeah.
But there's also ways to make money that aren't deceiving people.
Yeah, but it's so much easier to make more money when you lie.
And in most cases, that's exactly
Who
what
buys
happens.
chicken thighs?
Chicken thighs are delicious.
We grill up in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys do here.
White meat.
All right, I have an amazing video for you guys. A man and a cop were hit by a car during an arrest. This happened in Ohio. I am warning you guys, the video is a little graphic, it's a little disturbing, but with that said, let's watch.
Son of a bitch.
146, Medina 31.
Lie down.
Okay, can we watch that one more time? I want to see the cop's reaction again. The cop sees it happening. Okay.
146, Medina 31.
The cop in this case is so dirty because
I think he didn't pull the guy out of the way. He got out of the way and he didn't pull the guy.
No, he did. I think he did something worse than that. I think that he pulled the guy in front of him to cover himself. So when the car is coming, he's like,
no.
That's what it looked like to me.
See it again.
I mean, that's what it looks like. That might not be the case, but let's watch it again. It just seems like he pushes the guy in front, in front of him, so he protects himself.
But he's already behind the guy.
He is, but watch. He sees the car coming, and look at his reaction. See what? Am I right or am I right?
You might be right about that. You might be right about that.
146, Medina.
And then
How does the guy walk away?
The guy is amazing because he's like, oh, did that just happen? All right.
Yeah.
And he walks in the middle of the street. The cop goes after him. I guess he was afraid he was going to run away or something. But
yeah, the cop look. This is an accident. We don't know what's going through. It's a little traumatic, but there didn't seem to be a great deal of the cop panicking, running around, making sure the guy was okay. It's like, oh, where's that guy who just got hit? Oh, there he is. He's over there. I go round that guy up. The guy who took the blow for me. Yeah, I mean, I thought there was going to be a degree of throwing him heroically out of the way. There wasn't.
Of course not.
What happened? Do we know what the deal was there?
No, I looked everywhere for an accompanying news article to this, and I couldn't find anything, unfortunately. JR is the one who showed me this video, and he also couldn't find an article. But JR, what do you think about it? What were your thoughts when you first saw the video?
I didn't see the pushing part that you said, but one of the thoughts I did have was, man, he saw it coming, and luckily the guy wasn't handcuffed yet, but he kind of dove. I mean, maybe that's a natural reaction. I can't really fault him for it. You would hope that he would pull and go at the same time.
Right.
But I don't know. People's different reactions.
I can't. We don't know what happened. Everybody gets a pass.
Right.
I'm questioning the validity of the video.
Oh, you're unbearable.
You believe it may have been doctored?
I believe the video may have been doctored because it's too perfect.
I don't think so. I don't know.
This. I mean, it's totally boom, boom. I don't know, man. It's a great piece, and then there's no story. There's nothing to it. We don't know.
That's the only thing that's suspicious about it. I'm
It's
amazed.
lone
Or
dash
it's
cam.
15 years old. I don't know.
Well, we found the video today. I thought it was amazing. And
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I'm just saying. Now I messed up my hair.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, Ben's getting a little feisty. He needs to
But
fix
Ben,
that
this is
hair.
one of those situations where it's too perfect because we see it in the movies, right? But the reason it's in the movies is
It could happen.
it mimics real life.
The skidding is too much. Because you never hear the after the when you're at your house. You're watching TV,
Yes,
and you hear nothing.
That happens all the time here at work.
That was so.
too.
In a sense, it's terrible. That was so satisfying. To get the
I
leaving out
wouldn't say
the
that.
leaving out the human despair and perhaps internal injuries that it caused, like just from an audio point of view, to get the after the skidding.
It was done on a soundstage.
Right, it alleviates my anxiety.
Well, yeah, and well, I don't know how they would have doctored that guy's head rebounding off of the hood of that car because it did. But the next, but is it bad? I don't know. I don't know what the guy was getting hemmed up for, or if he was even going to be arrested. It seemed like it. He was patting him down, right? I'm thinking, man, let that guy go. He just paid the price.
Yeah, I mean, like there.
Whatever he did, let him go.
Right, there are a number of crimes which he is now exonerated for. Like, yeah, I mean, if he killed somebody, whatever,
Yeah.
Right,
No.
but,
if he killed somebody, not whatever. But if he was stopped for drug possession or something.
Stole a pie.
Yeah, stole
Whatever.
Fed it to his girlfriend through sex.
Let him go. Let him go. That video is not real.
All right. Ben & Jerry's Sweaty Balls is not amusing 1 million moms. They are calling for an end to the Sweaty Ball campaign by Ben & Jerry's. Of course, they're referencing the popular SNL skit where Alec Baldwin is talking about his sweaty balls on a radio show.
On NPR, on fake NPR.
On fake NPR. By the way, that's one of my favorite skits.
It's a great skit.
Because the way that they, I guess, try to portray NPR is so accurate.
Oh my God, it couldn't be more accurate.
I love NPR. I listen to it every day, right? But just the calm nature of the women, they're very
big male.
soothing voices.
Molly Shannon and Anna Gasteyer, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, they're great. No, and it's perfect. NPR. I mean, look, my father's president of NPR for 6 years. We love NPR, the Mankiewicz family. But when you'll be listening to the radio in the morning and you'll hear some NPR story about the fishing rights of the Inuit Indians. Right, and you're like, all right,
it's a big story.
I love that.
I can't bear it. And then you change the channel, and 15 exits go by on the freeway, and you've listened to a couple other songs. You switch back, and they're like, but for the Inuits, you're like, holy crap! How is this possibly?
Are you familiar with Nichelle Norris?
Yeah, sure.
You are.
Nichelle.
Yeah, okay. I love that you said that.
Yeah.
Because, okay, first of all, I love her. I think she's great.
She is great.
But whenever she pronounces her name, I'm just like, Nichelle Norris.
Of course.
Nichelle. I love it. I love NPR. I think it's great. Anyway, back to the story. So Ben & Jerry's is being asked to get rid of their sweaty balls.
I don't know what the campaign is. I mean, I love the skit with Alec Baldwin and the women, and I love but I don't even know what Ben & Jerry's is doing.
Ben & Jerry's, every once in a while they release a flavor that references
so
something
they have
political.
it's a new flavor.
Yeah, it's a new flavor, sweaty balls.
I saw Alec Baldwin tweet about this. I didn't know what he was tweeting about, but now I do.
And mothers are upset about it because the name of the ice cream is Sweaty Balls. Just get over it.
It's a limited batch. I mean, come on.
Not only that, even if it were a permanent batch, no, your kids aren't going to read Sweaty Balls on the label and then go out and have sex or do something crazy.
So, by the way, then don't buy it. That's their risk.
I thought it was proven.
Keep your child away from the ice cream aisle.
If somebody sees Chaz Bono on Dancing with the Stars and has never thought about having a sex change, they will have a sex change. So obviously, if someone just sees that ice cream exists called Sweaty Balls, they'll go out and have sex.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, just let it go, man. Who cares?
All right, I think we're running out of time, unfortunately, but
we have a little extra time because we went a little low.
We do, but
do one more story.
All right, I unfortunately have an obligation that I have to get to, but we'll do one more story.
One more story, really quick.
All right.
You look very nice, so I'm sure it's going to be a great obligation. I won't say anything about this story.
Okay, you're ridiculous. Okay, the Canadian Fertility and Andrology Society is having a debate about whether or not they should provide fertility services to obese women. Okay, so they are concerned with, the health risk that obese women have. They're concerned about the potential birth defects that the baby could have as a result of the mother being obese. So they're hosting this whole debate about it. And look, they have scientific evidence proving that if you are over a certain BMI, you put yourself and the baby in significant risk, right? And then the other side is arguing, well, this is just discrimination. But it's not discrimination. I don't see it as discrimination when doctors are genuinely concerned about the risk that you're posing for yourself and the baby. They're just saying, lose some weight, and then we'll give you the fertility treatments. I guess we'll see what happens after this debate, but I just thought it was important to bring it up because I don't see the issue, I guess.
To play devil's advocate, let's say if it's a lifestyle thing, people are overeating and they're obese and they're told you got to slim down because otherwise this baby's at risk. Okay, but what if it's a condition where you're obese because of a pre-existing or hereditary medical condition? You're being told you're not allowed to have kids. You're just not allowed. Other people can procreate. You can't, because you were born with this condition.
You can't this way. Like you can't in a manner that involves in vitro fertilization.
Well, I think we would assume if you're at that point, then the other methods have not worked, right?
I think maybe I'm going to sound like a bad person here, but if there is scientific evidence indicating that a certain weight puts you in great danger and risk if you get pregnant, even if it's a hereditary issue, I don't think that you should be given fertility treatments. I think if you really want to have a child, there are other options. I know people.
Well, but David's right. You get to this point, you may be out of other options, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't care.
Again, the classic Ben reaction to a story. It's you had me do an additional story when I was ready to end the show, just so you can say you don't care about the story. You are unbearable.
You know what's great? But I actually don't care. So it was a rich combination of factors coming together. But you're totally right. No matter what the story was, I was going to say that.
What if, though? What if there are certain conditions that are more common in certain races? Ashkenazi Jews, black people, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. What if we said the risk is slightly bigger that the kids will have certain conditions?
A slightly bigger risk does not matter.
Well, define slightly.
Well, look, if being a certain ethnicity and saying, okay, this ethnicity, on average, they have heart conditions or they have this or that, right? But it's a slight percentage, right? Then it's fine. But when it comes to obesity, you can have like a heart attack while you're giving birth. The baby might not make it. You might have birth defects. They listed a bunch of things. Miscarriage, high risk of miscarriage, low conception rate, gestational diabetes, complications during childbirth.
Higher birth defects.
The thing is, what is the cutoff between saying it's a slightly higher risk and it's acceptable or it's not? I mean, it seems like it's shades of gray in a sense. Mm-hmm. There has to, the argument could be made that, well, the risk is slightly lower of this for this group, so let's also say no IVF there. It just sounds, I hate making slippery slope arguments, but for the hell of it, I'm making it. Isn't this opening up that door?
I don't think it's slippery slope at all. They are specifically referring to people with a BMI higher than 35. That is significantly overweight.
I agree with you. If I'm going to be completely honest, I actually agree with you completely. I'm
right.
just, I don't know.
Playing devil's advocate.
We're rational people. We make you make the decision rationally. You're right. It's a slippery slope, but that doesn't mean we can't at some point, put our foot down. And it totally depends. There's an increased risk of actually having birth defects. How much of an increased risk? If it's 4% higher, well then no, I'm afraid you're just going to have to go ahead and do it to whoever comes along. If it's 68% higher, well then there's a reasonable standard. So it all depends on that.
I'm sorry to extend this, Anna. You have your obligation.
I love how mysterious it is.
People do the obligation.
Yeah.
People do all kinds of things that put their children at risk. We don't stop them from doing it. I mean, they don't go, have you ever smoked before? Are you going to smoke later? You can have a glass of wine. I mean, there's things that you can do to put your baby at risk. And then also, like you said, there's a cutoff mark. And it's the BMI with 35. Is that what we're saying? When someone's at the borderline, then what? And then this guy says this. And then some doctors think this is obese. And then, yes, there's numbers behind it. But there's always people who have their opinions. And you just wonder, things are higher. Some people have higher risk pregnancies just because they have higher risk pregnancies. Are you going to stop somebody? I mean,
people smoke around their kids. People feed their kids McDonald's. That's not healthy.
Right, but that's what I mean. There's so many things that people do that you can't just
obviously the
regulate
doctors ought to,
before
before they engage a woman in vitro fertilization, they ought to massively recommend that you lose weight, and you ought to say, look, you got to come back and show me you've lost weight, and then if they haven't lost weight, then you deal with that problem.
Exactly. If you're that determined to have a child, I don't think that it's that unreasonable to ask you to lose weight so you don't put yourself in danger during the process. That's the whole problem. I'm not saying I don't like fat people, so I don't want them to give birth. It has nothing to do with that.
That's what
I'm worried about her safety and the baby's safety.
That's liberal stuff. Worrying about other people and making them do stuff to be healthier. That's what liberals do. The conservative way would be let them do whatever they want.
Right. Let them do whatever they want. If she has a complication, let her die. Let her die. She knew the risks.
As long as the government doesn't have to pay for it.
Well, I don't have to pay for it. I don't really care what happens to her.
Anyway, all right. Now we're significantly over time.
Although what would be great would be to give these women with the BMI of over 35 that guy's last meal, which he did not finish.
Which sounded delicious.
It did.
See you on Monday.